What if I told you that in just 4 years, one of the most beautiful countries in Southeast Asia was turned into a vast graveyard? What if I told you that neighbors, teachers, and even children were forced to betray each other in the name of a twisted vision of utopia? This is the story of the Cambodian Killing Fields. But how did an entire nation descend into such horror? And who was the man who orchestrated this nightmare? In 1975, Cambodia fell into the hands of the Khmer Rouge, a radical communist movement led by Pol Pot. To his followers, he promised a society of pure equality, free from wealth, class, and corruption. But beneath those promises hid something darker, an obsession with absolute power, and a ruthless willingness to erase anyone who stood in his way. Could such a vision ever be achieved without bloodshed? Pol Pot thought so, and he would prove it in the most horrifying way. The Khmer Rouge's first order was chilling. Evacuate the cities. Within days, Phnom Penh, a bustling capital of 2 million, became a ghost town. Families were forced at gunpoint into the countryside, carrying only what they could hold. The elderly, the sick, and even newborns were not spared the brutal marches. Why were these people expelled from their homes? Pol Pot believed cities were the root of corruption, and that Cambodia's future lay in turning everyone into farmers. But this was no peaceful return to the land. It was the beginning of mass suffering. In the rice fields of Cambodia, utopia became a prison. Men, women, and children labored from dawn to dusk, barely surviving on a handful of rice. A day starvation, exhaustion, and disease swept through the camps. Yet, the regime demanded more to the Khmer Rouge. Even hunger and death were acceptable sacrifices for their revolution. But who decided who lived and who died? The answer was terrifyingly simple: suspicion. Pol Pot's Cambodia thrived on fear. Teachers, doctors, monks, and intellectuals, anyone with education, were labeled enemies of the state. Wearing glasses could mark you for execution. Families turned against each other, afraid a whispered word might condemn them all. The Killing Fields, open-air execution grounds, became the final destination for countless victims. But how many lives did this nightmare claim? The numbers still haunt the world today. Between 1975 and 1979, nearly 2 million Cambodians, a quarter of the population, were executed, starved, or worked to death. The killing fields stretched across the countryside, shallow mass graves filled with mothers, children, and entire families. To this day, fragments of bones and clothing still rise from the soil during the rains, silent reminders of the lives cut short. Can a nation ever recover from such wounds? Or do the dead continue to whisper through the earth? In 1979, the Khmer Rouge reign finally ended when Vietnam invaded Cambodia, toppling Pol Pot's regime. Survivors emerged from labor camps like ghosts, walking through the ruins of their shattered nation. Yet, Pol Pot himself escaped justice for years, living in hiding until his death in 1998. How could a man responsible for millions of deaths escape the judgment of the world? And why did it take so long for the truth to be told? The Killing Fields remain one of humanity's darkest chapters, a brutal reminder of what happens when ideology consumes compassion and power destroys humanity. Today, Cambodia still carries the scars of Pol Pot's vision, but also the resilience of its survivors. As we remember their suffering, one question echoes through history: how many more times must humanity repeat such horrors before we finally learn. The Cambodian Killing Fields stand as both a warning and a demand. Never forget. Never again.